Milton Berle was the first star created by television. Although he began years before the medium was invented, a comedian from the vaudevillian era and a nightclub performer, I grew up watching him on one of those original 1950s black and white television sets with rabbit ears. He was the most popular television performer of his times. On Sunday nights, Milton Berle's Texaco's Star Theater was mandatory viewing for everyone in America who had just purchased a machine that somehow transported moving pictures into your living room. It was live, slapstick, vaudevillian, silly, and amazingly entertaining. On my way to his home to conduct our interview, I reflected upon those images. We shared a few hours together in his living room, and as I would learn from interviewing other great comedians, like Moe Howard of the Three Stooges, Groucho Marx, Mort Saul, David Steinberg, Rob Reiner, and others, when comedians are not performing, they can be highly introspective and complex beings. He was. He loved to gamble, and probably lost more than he would care to admit at the racetrack. He loved his wife. He was a good businessman. He was generous and friendly with his fans. He also lived longer than the affection that television could provide for him.
Is there a big difference between being a comedian and being a comic?
Did you ever hear that before?
No.
Well, I didn't say it. Ed Wynn said it. He said a comic is the guy who says funny things, and a comedian is the guy who says things funny. And, of course, in my mind, it's a little different. It's a little different, but it's maybe the same. My idea of a comedian is one who is not afraid of silence, that can take and wait and take those beats. Like we were talking about Jack Benny once, there's nothing funny on a paper if you read a Benny script where it said well, unless Benny was playing in character.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest joke that Jack Benny ever did was your money, your life, and where the crook said your money, your life, and Jack Benny waited and paused and looked and waited and waited. And finally the crook said, well, he said, I'm thinking. Now that's not a joke. And it's the personality that's doing the joke and the character of Benny that makes him the comedian. There are some of our great comedians and wits that can't actually tell a joke, but that doesn't make any difference. I mean, a joke per se. Mm-hmm. Did you hear the one about? Mm-hmm. Or I like that suit. Who shines it for you? Whatever it is. Or a put-down joke. Each one is a specialist. So I don't put down a comic or I don't put down a comedian. I don't put down anyone that can make an audience laugh because I think what I said at the beginning of my book, where I dedicate my book to the funny men. If you record that couplet I wrote, mm-hmm. To the funny men who were, who are, who will be heroes who face the world naked, but for the weapon of laughter. And as you fantasize and get a picture of a crowded stadium or a crowded theater with 4,000 or 5,000 people, and you see a spotlight on one comic standing on the stage in front of an audience, in front of a mic, telling jokes, I think anybody that walks out there alone, be it comic or comedian, should get paid just for showing up without opening their mouth.
Just because
they showed up.
Risk he's
taking the risk
mm-hmm.
Of standing in front of 5,000 to 10,000 or 50,000 people, because that's pretty dangerous.
Do you, In your particular case, it seems that you were a little bit of all of those categories that you have mentioned. No one could classify you as just a comic or just a comedian or just a funny man. At one time or another throughout your career, you have been all of them simultaneously, have you not?
Well, in a way, Elliot, yes. I started as a kid actor, but I started as a straight actor, just doing straight roles. No comedic talents. I had the talent, but I guess I couldn't find it. It wasn't there yet. And so I learned the background of doing something straight without being funny or trying to be funny. And then it all helped for the later years where I branched out and patterned myself after Ted Healy or Eddie Cantor or whoever it may be in those days. And then I found myself, but it took me a long time to find my own style. And that's the name of the game. It's called style, it's individuality, it's speciality, it's who are you, which are the three things that we always have to study theatrically or comedically or dramatically is who am I, what am I doing here, and why. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know who I was. I was a combination of, which is all right for any youngster to start with the new breed. If he puts Woody Allen on a pedestal and he wants to be like Woody Allen, that's a good way to start. We're into comedy now. You didn't ask me these questions. But I didn't know who I was until I accidentally or automatically or just, not automatically, I say just work. You know, it's all right to do a monologue and practice and prepare in front of a mirror, but that doesn't help until you get in front of an audience.
Do you think that the television experience probably crystallized or...
No, the television experience came way after I had my own experience.
I mean, in terms of crystallizing what you would do best, discovering what element of the comedic...
I know. No. Before television, without getting hammy, but you read the book.
Yes.
I was a star in nightclubs, a star in vaudeville, and I was getting tremendous salaries back in 1937, 38, and in the early 40s. And I was at the Carnival Restaurant in New York for 52 weeks. I had a tremendous amount of money, and I had my own show there, and I was Master of Ceremonies, and it was a 2-hour show. And then I played vaudeville so many years, of flea bags, of flopping in Steubenville and killing them in Newark and dying in Reading, Pennsylvania, or wherever it may be, and then weeding out the junk. Mm-hmm. And it took us possibly 2 or 3 years to get 8 good minutes. So all that background of learning to crawl before you walk, or you have to crawl before you walk, and paying your dues and doing your homework did not hurt, but it only helped my television career. Because when I went on television, I was really ready.
Yes, you were.
Because I was really ready to do it. And the first thing we brought to television, that I brought to television, was the shows that I did in the theaters and in nightclubs all combined. In fact, the first year and a half, I didn't have any writers. You read that in the book. Couldn't afford it. The budget wouldn't allow it. And I just remembered what I had done in vaudeville for the prior years. And then it started to get thin, and then we put on writers when we could afford it, get the money. But it didn't... I would say that I have to agree with you that as you grow older in the business, Elliot, that you do learn more. You can never stop learning. I don't care if you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s, or as old as you get, you can never stop learning something new or correct something that you did something wrong 20 years ago, and you say, I won't do it wrong again because I had that experience. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, it'll never happen again, or I'll never tell that line again, or... But I was ready for television. I don't know if television was ready for me, but it was.
Obviously it was. A couple of general questions, and then I want to ask you a few specific questions. One of the things that struck me in reading the book, I happen to like autobiographies a lot, read a lot of them, especially about show business personalities, political personalities. I did not get a feeling from the book, an overall feeling of bitterness or anger or despair although some of the experiences that you reported certainly could lend itself to those emotions. But the pervasive emotion that I got from the book, the feeling that I finally had when I closed it, was, and it might have had something to do with the last few pages, perhaps, because you remember those the most. There was a feeling of sadness. There was a kind of feeling of emptiness, that even though you've had this remarkable
Emptiness of life, of my own life?
in terms of your personal...
Yes, well, I think you're right there, Elliot. I have to agree with you. There wasn't any bitterness. I think there was pity for myself.
Yes.
That's what you're referring to.
I didn't want to use that word.
That's perfectly all right.
I did sense that.
No, let's be honest. Even in the last line, when Fulton Sheen says at the dinner, it's your 60th anniversary, Milton, keep us laughing. We've been laughing at you for 60 years. Keep us laughing and laughing. And then my tagline was, if I recall, it says, I'll do that, but the next time I want to laugh myself. Meaning that I have not. Now, this is kind of blunt and honest. I've been working so hard, Elliot, throughout my life, and trials and tribulations, with personal things, such as divorces and separations and private life, etc., and romances and horses and gambling and losing $3.5 million. That, as you looked at, that was a release. That was an escape at those times for me to do that, because I was looking for some kind of a hobby. I mean, how much golf can I play? How much tennis can I play? And it is quite a sad outlook when you say that, gee, here's a guy that makes people laugh, and he doesn't get as much laughs for himself out of his own life as he does. But that's the real story. I can't put it down. I wrote it, and that's it. I must say that that's the truth. In these later years, I'm very, very happily married to Ruth, and I have a wonderful son, Billy, and my daughter, Vicky, who has two children, gave me two grandchildren. I'm very, very happy about that. I have very, very good friends, and it's a little easier. It's much easier now. I can laugh and enjoy myself a little more. But in the days of the fighting and groping to get, it's a little square and corny to say this, to get, it sounds like a pulp story, to get to the top, there's that groping and pushing, and may my mother rest in peace, a very dominant woman who was a real great stage mother, but I wouldn't say she was a real great mother, but she was a stage mother, and of pushing me and putting me in front of the whole family, and not disregarding but neglecting her family a little more. That's all true in the book, and I didn't come to the realization of that until I was about 18 or 19. And that had affected my later life, my earlier life, which, of course, that's what usually happens. If you sit down with some kind of a doctor and say, where were you born and what happened when you were 16 or 14 or 12? So I guess now comes the time in the September of my years, if you want to call it that, you should get much more enjoyment out of life. And I do as much, let me just put it this way, as much as I can.
I understand.
As much as capable of eating up and sopping up a certain amount of enjoyment. As much as I can. Because my whole life has been work. I work to live and live to work. I lay off 2-3 weeks, the nails come off. Mm-hmm. I got to get in front of an audience. I got to hear them laugh. It's hammy, it's corny, but it's true. And I hope it don't sound corny.
No, it doesn't.
But it's true. So what is there for me to laugh at, except to enjoy my family? And I'm a family man. See this chair that I'm sitting in? I'm in this chair every night, watching my son Billy taking lessons or talking about aeronautics, which he's deep into aeronautics, and he's taking flying lessons, and it's what he wants to be. And my wife, Ruth, who's got her own time to be taken up of being mixed up with politics and being on boards of Synanon and ACLU and the head of one of the heads of the Democratic Party and a delegate to the convention, that's her bag, and I think it's just right when I'm just going non sequitur with you right now, but
right, it's very clear.
But it's a I have as much as an enjoyment now. I guess I can just say I'm just as happy now as I can be. I think I could be happier, not with home, and not. I don't know where to find it. I don't know if find it in my business, theatrical business, or I find it home, but which is the most important, I think. But it's quite difficult for me to laugh at another comedian. Only certain comedians I laugh at, and because it becomes technical on my part, it becomes mechanical. They did this wrong. They shouldn't have said this. They worded the line wrong, and they shouldn't have done this movement. They detracted. They overlapped. They didn't plant the line, and I become very critical, and which is mindful of this time that when Grace Allen died, George Burns wanted to get a new partner. Some 3 years later, he went down to see Carol Channing. The funny thing, they're together again, and he and I went. He said, "You want to go to Vegas? I want to see Carol Channing." I said, "Sure, I'll go with you, George." So I went to Vegas with him. We saw Carol Channing, but there was somebody that was opening the show before a comic, not a new comic, not an old. When I say old, not a veteran of the wars, a new comic. And I said to him after the show, and him with his theatricalisms and everything is show business with him, how I killed him in Newark and flattened him in Vietnam or something. His summarization, the way he summed up this guy's act, I fell down and I laughed. I said, but he was very right. I said, "Did you like that fellow that opened the show, the comedian?" And this is the write-up he gave him. All he said is, he doesn't know how to bow. Yeah. So that encompasses the whole thing of what he was trying to say. I know what he meant. He doesn't know how to bow. When we use that in the vernacular, he doesn't know how to bow, that means he is at a loss for many, many other things if he doesn't know how to bow.
Yeah.
So, well, he didn't like him, etc. And I'm not going to say today that guy is, because it's not true. In trying to make a life for myself, from a happiness life, I am content, with my family, my wife, and I live very, very comfortably, and monetarily I'm fine, everything is fine, but it's that extra that I'm looking for, which is what you want to know, that I haven't found yet.
I'd like to talk to you briefly about gambling. I happen to enjoy an occasional bet now and then. So that part of your life, which I originally read excerpted in a magazine a year or so ago, it intrigued me the most. You lost $3.5 million, you think, on horses?
I counted to about that. Yeah. No, it was just the excitement of the racetrack at that time, of want of something to do. And I wanted speed. I wanted action, and unfortunately, and fortunately, sometimes I won a lot of money. And I'd say if you had $55 billion and you played the horses every day, you wouldn't have enough money.
You'd eventually lose the $55 billion?
We'll take it easy. We'll go easy. If you had $1 million or $2 million and you played the horses every day, you got to go broke.
Wouldn't there be pros who would disagree with you?
Possibly they are, but those are the pros that come over and ask me for $10 before the seventh race.
You never met I assume you traveled in some circles like that. You never met a successful gambler who only derived his income from from gaming?
Yes, I met a few of them. I met Julie Fink of the Speed Boys. They're known as the Speed Boys. They made a living by betting on horses, but they didn't bet every day. They did what we call spot bets. They used to say, Milton, you want to go to the track with me? And I used to go to Jamaica or Aqueduct or Belmont Park or Hollywood or wherever they may be. And I said, oh my gosh, I'm going to win today because I'm with the Speed Boys. And I sat there for the 8 races and they didn't make one bet. Well, I couldn't sit there for 8 races and not make one bet. And they do that. Want to go tomorrow? Yes, I'll go tomorrow. I never make a bet. Maybe the 3rd day or 4th day, we're making a bet. And they made one bet, possibly out of 24 to 32 races. But that bet they won. And it didn't have to be a long shot. It was like a horse that paid 3 to 1. But it was sure. They were sure. And it wasn't a boat race. It wasn't a fixed race. But they were sure they were following a horse. But if there are spot players that do not play every day, that play maybe once every 3-4 weeks, and they bet a goodly amount on the horse, and it wins, they can beat the races. But you can't play every day.
Those were the people who were primarily interested in making money as opposed to the action.
Oh, sure.
And you were primarily, you didn't need the money.
I didn't need them. I wanted action.
You wanted action. Can you recall offhand some of the horses that were really good to you?
Oh, no.
You can't?
No.
Can you recall weeks at a time when you did really well?
Oh, of course. I did well some weeks when I was in Chicago at the Oriental or the Palace Theater in Chicago, and one week I won 87,000. Next week I lost 110. One day I'd win 40,000, and instead of saying, well, I won't play. See, the trouble is in horse racing and betting is the more you win, the more you win, the more you want to win, and it's headed under one word, and that's greed. And that's like any gambling game. It's greed. So what I'm trying to say, Ellie, it's cheaper to lose than to win. Because if you make yourself a budget on what you're going to go to a racetrack, I've got $100. I'm going to go on. When I lose the $100, I'm going to save a little car fare and a little bus fare or train fare, and I'm going to go home. But if you keep winning, and the cliche comes up, well, but I'm using the horse to track's money. That's a lot of money. I say, and that goes for Vegas too. I like to put down Vegas, but if you stay long enough at a blackjack table, you're going to get grinded out. So if you win $200-300, you got to just leave. Get up and leave. Because if you sit there long enough, you're going to lose that, and you're going to go into something more. Which is one of the great stories. Now we're going to split.
Okay.
And that's the late B.S. Pulley, who was a character, who was a gambler. I was playing Caesar's Palace some 7 years ago, and it was about 3 o'clock in the morning. I was standing in the casino with Mrs. Berle, and B.S. Pulley was a little intoxicated, but he had that very low, deep voice, and he was kind of a tough guy, too, but a very nice fellow, but when he was sober, and an inveterate gambler. Came over to me, and he said, Milton, loan me $200. And I said, Pulley, you owe me $6,800 already, which you haven't paid me. He says, just the $200, please. I said, all right, but this is the last time. He says, don't worry, I'll be back next weekend and pay the money. The $200. I said, all right. Well, I took that as, forget it. Well, the following week, he came back. And he met me in the casino. And he looked at me and he says, I ain't forgot. That's the way he used to speak. I ain't forgot about the $300 I owe you. I said, it was only $200. He says, it's going to be $300.